Hello, I'm Mishka, and this channel is the Helsinki Renaissance, where we will be talking about arts and culture, and hopefully the most Renaissance-man-like manner in which it's possible to discuss arts and culture. At least that's the plan. Now, in the last video that I just did, which is called something like talking about the quality in modern cinema and the quality in Martin Scorsese's late period filmmaking, which I was meant to do just a simple review or a simple discussion about my thoughts about The Departed, but basically this kind of an introduction to it became long enough that it became its own video, which is why I now have to do this new video that's actually a discussion about specifically my problems with The Departed. Now, I say this to say that I highly recommend anyone who's watching this video to watch that earlier video, because these are kind of like, well, obviously linked to one another, but maybe you care, maybe you don't care, I don't know, I just point it out as something to do with me recording this. But anyway, so why do I think that The Departed is not representing the best in Martin Scorsese's career? Now, obviously, I mean, the obvious answer is that I think that he has a lot of movies that are better, but you know, I don't just say that the reason why I wouldn't think that this isn't top tier Scorsese because Taxi Driver or Goodfellas are a lot better as movies. Like, conceivably, even the fans of The Departed might freely admit that. But I think that there is something that's deeply misguided in a lot of the elements that this movie is praised for. And as such, I think that this is barely a good movie. You know, some people have used an argument against some individuals in society, saying that they would have been born on the third base and acting like they hit a home run. Now, I think that The Departed is that kind of a rare movie where I would almost use that argument against this, saying that there was a recent popular, successful kind of a crime thriller from Hong Kong called Infernal Affairs, starring Tony Leung and Andy Lau. The Departed is a remake of it. Now, Infernal Affairs became a trilogy, and kind of to my shock, the two sequels to the Infernal Affairs are actually quite good. In that, for instance, John Woo's A Better Tomorrow, I'm not at all a fan of the two sequels that it has, although I can sort of understand why some people like the second one, although it's just so kind of out there that, you know, like, yeah, no. But like, I can understand why some people like them, but like, I expected the Infernal Affairs sequels to be like Better Tomorrow sequels, in that, you know, like, it was a hit. They tried whether they could, you know, keep riding the gravy train, but actually I thought that the Infernal Affairs sequels were just legitimately good movies in their own right. Now, you know, The Departed obviously has that to try and use to add quality to itself, and then it has this kind of a great assembled cast of Leonardo DiCaprio, Matt Damon, Jack Nicholson, Mark Wahlberg, Martin Sheen, you know, Alec Baldwin. Like, you know, there's a lot going for it. You know, Scorsese returning to this kind of a Goodfellas, Mean Streets line in his filmography. Like, there was a lot going for The Departed. Like, even before filming started, it was as if a movie on third base. And basically everyone who's at all, you know, into Scorsese was sort of motivated to, like, people were trying to fall in love with a movie like The Departed. Like, Scorsese's return to the kind of, you know, popular mainstream as a great great director. Like, like I would say that The Departed is a movie that was on third base as the filming started, and people act like this hit a home run, but I'm saying that this is definitely not a home run success. So the first point to say is that I think Martin Scorsese has made 3 movies that are either remakes or very close to remakes. And all 3 times I would make the argument that the previous movie has outclassed Scorsese's movies on every conceivable level. So the 3 remakes or remake-like projects are Cape Fear, The Departed, and Silence. Now, people will say that the Silence is based on a Shushaku Endo novel, and as such, Scorsese was doing the novel, like doing an adaptation of the novel rather than remaking the Masahiro Shinoda movie. But if Martin Scorsese filmed Magnificent Ambitions, people wouldn't say that he's filming the Booth Tarkington novel. They would say that he's remaking the Orson Welles film. So again, people would try to have it both ways, in that they would say that a hypothetical Ambitions project would be a remake, but the Shushaku Endo stuff wouldn't be. But I'm saying that this is a remake-like situation, that the Masahiro Shinoda version, it's not like, by the way, Martin Scorsese knows who Masahiro Shinoda is. He's talking about being a fan of Pale Flower, for instance, as a Japanese New Wave movie and so on. So, like, I don't want to hear anything about Scorsese is not on the map with that movie. He knows what it is. So anyway, like, I would basically put the Silence in the same kind of category, in that, the Masahiro Shinoda film, I would call it a borderline masterpiece. It is this kind of Heart of Darkness type story, where, I think Masahiro Shinoda, there was kind of an optimal way of representing the Shushaku Endo book. And, to the best of my knowledge, Shinoda is not a Catholic, isn't, I don't know what his religious affiliations may be, but like Shinoda not being a Catholic, the way that I think Shushaku Endo might be, or a Christian, there's this interesting kind of a distance to how Shinoda filmed Silence to how the Catholic Martin Scorsese filmed Silence. Now, I would say that the Silence case is the least clear-cut, although I would make the argument that Shinoda's Silence is actually the best of these 3 movies, or the best of these 6 movies, in that if we had the original Cape Fear with Mitchum and Gregory Peck, the Infernal Affairs Departed, the Cape Fear remake, obviously, and then the Shinoda Silence and the Scorsese Silence, I would actually say that out of those 6 movies, the Shinoda Silence is the best. It's the closest that I would call to a masterpiece. And the second one that I would call a masterpiece is the Infernal Affairs. The original Cape Fear, it's okay, kind of an also-done film noir. But then, like, with all these 3 movies, like, I would say that Scorsese, like, Martin Scorsese is supposed to be a classy filmmaker. Martin Scorsese is supposed to be the one to introduce class and greatness and production values to these genre films. But in all 3 areas, it's as if Scorsese gets out Scorsese'd by these original movies, and it's kind of random that this keeps happening to him. In that, if Martin Scorsese works with these kind of cinematographers like Michael Ballhaus or something, like, I mean, he's supposed to be the one with the pristine production values. His remake isn't supposed to look like some sort of trashy, corporate cash grab type of let's just try to use what we can of the old stuff. It's just it's kind of awkward to look at it from that kind of wrong side of the situation. And that I like Martin Scorsese more than I like these other film directors. Although Masahiro Shinoda, he is a director that I do quite like, but obviously Scorsese's filmography has to be regarded as stronger. But I like Scorsese. I'm very open to the idea of seeing late period Scorsese films as great. I can't look at the evidence and see the greatness in here. So, again, the first thing that I can say against The Departed is that it's so much worse than the original. On every conceivable level, I think it's worse than the original. And so, I don't really care if a remake has an easier time of doing something great. If we take what to me is kind of gold standard of remakes in John Carpenter's The Thing, I don't care if John Carpenter found it easier making The Thing great because it's a remake. I don't care. I just want the movie to be great. So, I'm not holding a remake necessarily to a higher standard as far as, it can achieve greatness however it will. It's not particularly factored into my thinking, but if a remake falls so short of greatness, to me that's it's kind of weird that somebody's on third base and can't get home from there. It's just kind of awkward. Now, maybe, to keep this kind of baseball metaphor, let's say that there's kind of this on-plate collision between, the catcher being ready, the Departed is running there, and then the ball comes between them, and there's kind of question of whether the runner was safe or not. And on such situations, it's seen as good form to give the tie to the runner, so that people will talk about The Departed, but I would put all kinds of asterisks around The Departed's home run status. So that's why I'm making this video. But anyway, I just think it's worth pointing out that Infernal Affairs is a masterpiece, and I don't think The Departed is. And the levels with which The Departed fails at keeping a pace with Infernal Affairs are kind of strange. Again, it's weird seeing Scorsese outclassed by a lot of these kind of more obscure directors, because, again, this is supposed to be Scorsese's forte in that infusing greatness to genre projects. It's supposed to be what Scorsese does, what he's known for, but with something like Departed, he just, according to my tastes, can't quite get it done. Now, I don't want to make a case as to why I think Infernal Affairs is a masterpiece. I just personally think that it is, and I don't throw the word around. I think it is genuinely kind of a pitch perfect modern, crime thriller project. And, just the casting, the pacing, the production values, everything's just coming together in Infernal Affairs. It is like a graceful home run. Somebody just having a plate appearance, they get, there's a fastball coming, they get beneath the ball, there's the bat connecting with the ball sound on the plate, and then they just walk around the bases. Or hopefully run at somewhat, with some level of hustling. But anyway, I don't think The Departed is that at all, and I suppose I need to focus more on my problems with it. So anyway, I think the casting was great. I remember, I went to see The Departed in the theaters. I remember the kind of hype for it when it came out. I still remember when Gimme Shelter started playing over the opening scene. I think it's the third time that Scorsese uses the song in his filmography. I actually think it's the best of the three usages. So I still remember that Jack Nicholson voiceover narration, Gimme Shelter playing. I mean, it was meant to be Scorsese's Goodfellas, like returning to the Goodfellas territory of, he's still got it, he's still the best. Like, it was meant to be, but the more the movie went on, the more I started having to feel like, no, this isn't Goodfellas. I mean, this is barely Casino. I could see the argument both ways into which is a better movie, Casino or The Departed. Like, the reason why I feel more like siding with Casino is because The Departed is a remake, and I feel a bit awkward that it's the lesser of the two movies when compared to Infernal Affairs. But I could definitely see both ways. I can understand why some people think it's a better movie than Casino, but that's a different conversation. Now, again, as I said, I think the cast is great, but I think there's a couple of ways in which the movie completely fails its good casting. And the most devastating criticism that I would level against The Departed is that I understand that people don't want to contrast it to Infernal Affairs too much, although don't remake older movies if you hate that conversation had. But so saying that the main criticism is that Matt Damon and Leonardo DiCaprio, they quite simply have the wrong roles. In that Matt Damon has kind of a Tony Leung type vibe, and Leonardo DiCaprio in this, he even looks like Andy Lau, which is kind of strange. But like in the original, Andy Lau plays this kind of a cold-hearted criminal who he wants to live that high life. He wants to be a big shot, living in the penthouse, feeling the good life. But it is kind of this territory of what does a man profit if he gains the whole world, if he loses his soul? In that the whole point of the Andy Lau character is that he got what he wanted, but it was kind of this Pyrrhic victory, in that the price that he had to pay to get what he wanted basically took out all the sweetness from the victory. That was the kind of whole essence of the Andy Lau character. And Leonardo DiCaprio, I'm convinced he could have pulled that role so much better than how he ended up trying to play the Tony Leung role. In that, I think Leonardo DiCaprio should have been the kind of criminal who starts having this kind of internal debates about whether it was worth it or not, whether this is the life that he really wants. Now, after he got away with everything, should he have done it? Like, that was meant to be the soul of the movie. And I think that Matt Damon, he should have played the Tony Leung side, that he's the undercover cop, he's the, Boy Scout who tries to do his job, but is a bit in over his head and whatever. Like, Matt Damon, like, I think that of the two performances, Leonardo DiCaprio can sort of hack it out as the, Boy Scout who's cracking under pressure and, is finding it hard to stay above water. Like, Leonardo DiCaprio can just about hack it out, but I think that his attempts at hanging in there, attempts at infusing intensity to the situation, I think that there's moments where they become a bit distracting, but Matt Damon, like him trying to be the bad guy, it's not working at all. Like, at all, it's not working. So, like, that would have been such a simple fix. Like, have Matt Damon be the Boy Scout, have Leonardo DiCaprio be the bad guy, and I think the movie, basically everything would have fallen to the right track in that I think that you could have had a more reasonable discussion where The Departed would have been the best late period Scorsese movie, and where The Departed could be better than Infernal Affairs. Now, I would still side against Infernal Affairs, I would still side against The Departed because I have other criticism too, but like, I think that the film cannot survive the miscasting of the leads. Now, Leonardo DiCaprio is a bigger film star than Matt Damon, and Leonardo DiCaprio, like, I'd hate to criticize him for this, but I have to. in that when DiCaprio had this kind of 1-2 punch of Romeo and Juliet with Baz Luhrmann and Titanic, like he clearly despised this kind of teen heartthrob, matinee idol thing to his career, which Robert Pattinson recently also clearly despised, being some teen girl's favorite actor and whatever. So, like, Leonardo DiCaprio tried to do all in his power to distance himself from this kind of, pop idol, and he wanted to prove that he's a real actor. Now, I don't want to say that whether he should or shouldn't feel like that. It's his life, it's his career, he can do whatever he wants. But, like, to me, The Departed is this kind of like him trying to detox himself of that Jack from Titanic stuff, and basically he's not being a proper team player because he just keeps thinking of himself, he keeps thinking of his own image, he thinks of how to put his career where it needs to be, and in The Departed it's at the cost of his movie, because when he's trying to be the anti-Jack from Titanic, there becomes this kind of like he turns The Departed almost into a vanity project. Whereas if I mean, it could have been like it could have still been part of that trend of him trying to distance himself from that Romeo and Juliet or Titanic stuff if he just played the kind of simpler role of the Andy Lau criminal, who is the main character. The Andy Lau is the main character, not the Tony Leung, although, well, that becomes really inside baseball about the structural realities of dramaturgy, but the Andy Lau character is the main character, is the protagonist. He's the one with the character arc. The Tony Leung character, even though he has screen time and some gravity, he's kind of the decoy lead, the way that in some films like Psycho, the person who initially seems like the main character isn't it. But anyway, we don't need to get into that. Now, again, I like Leonardo DiCaprio. I like him in Titanic. I like him in Romeo and Juliet. I like him in the movies that he's done afterwards. I think he's a fine actor. Lots of people criticize him for this kind of commitment to intensity and whatever, and they don't think that he can really pull it off. I don't have any problems with that. I just want him to kind of land the casting right. Like, to me, great acting is 90% great casting, and here the reason why the acting isn't quite great is because the casting isn't quite great. Now, the secondary problem that I have with the film, like the kind of tonal qualities of Scorsese's direction sometimes become problematic, the casting sometimes become problematic, but the writing mainly is what I think that the film cannot survive. So, there is this tendency that some in the, like, there is the kind of mainstream cinema viewer who loves this kind of postmodern, populist, snarky crime comedies, like Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction, or something like Boondock Saints, or In Bruges, or some films like that. Like, there is a huge audience for those kind of movies, like Robert Rodriguez movies or what have you. Like, there's a big audience for films like that, Matthew Vaughn's Layer Cake. And I'm not saying that people in the audience shouldn't love those kind of movies, because if you love them, then, that's your cinematic taste and that's fine. But, like, there's 2 points that I want to make about it. One, if The Departed is that kind of a movie, don't act as if it's something more than that, because it's not. And then two, I would kind of question the kind of ultimate greatness of that kind of a line, in that to me something like Pulp Fiction takes that kind of a line to its kind of the edge of its quality, in that I don't dislike necessarily those movies like Layer Cake or Reservoir Dogs or whatever. Like, I don't necessarily dislike them at all, but like, the qualitative drop from the Taxi Drivers or Goodfellas of the world to that kind of stuff, like, it's noticeable, which is why I can't quite give The Departed the kind of high praise that some would want for it. But anyway, like, what I'm trying to say about the problematic nature of the screenwriting in The Departed is that if you think about key moments in writing in The Departed, I think that those tend to be the kind of Shane Black type one-liners that he does in films like Lethal Weapon or Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, of the kind of situation that I'm the guy who's doing his job, you must be the other guy. And by the way, I love Shane Black as a screenwriter. I think he's great. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is one of my favorite movies. But again, it's no Goodfellas, alright? Like, it's just, again, I just want to state that much about films like The Departed or Lethal Weapon or whatever. Like, it's no Goodfellas. It's not in the same universe. So, again, I'm fine with the kind of, I'm the guy who's doing his job, you must be the other guy. I'm fine with that kind of writing. I just I want tonal consistency. The reason why I like Shane Black, the screenwriter of The Last Boy Scout or Long Kiss Goodnight or whatever, Lethal Weapon, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, Iron Man 3. Like, the reason why Last Action Hero was also Shane Black. So I really like Shane Black. I'm thoroughly entertained by Shane Black movies. But again, the main thing is that he has tonal consistency, versus The Departed tries to have it both ways. It tries to have this Shane Black run, but it also tries to, like, basically Leonardo DiCaprio and Matt Damon, they are as if in their own movie, and then everyone else is like in a Shane Black movie. That Alec Baldwin is perfectly fine doing the Shane Black thing. He's talking about how, the Matt Damon character should get married so that guys in The Departed would think that he's heterosexual. Or that, the Jack Nicholson character, like, waving random objects at a porn theater. Like, that's clearly that kind of Shane Black stuff. But then this kind of inner turmoil stuff that Leonardo DiCaprio tries to convey, that Matt Damon tries to sort of more subtly convey about, the two characters that are meant to have depth in the movie are Leonardo DiCaprio and Matt Damon. Like, the Martin Sheen character, the Alec Baldwin character, the Jack Nicholson character, the Mark Wahlberg character, they have no depth. Like, no depth whatsoever. There's only two characters that are meant to have the depth, and the movie is meant to have its depth level through those two characters. But the tonal qualities of the movie are completely all over the place when you have you have these random Shane Black jokes in one scene, and then Leonardo DiCaprio is meant to have some sort of a nervous breakdown in a psychiatrist's office the next scene. And that you can't go from, audience rolling on the floor laughing over the one-liner jokes thrown around, and then have some sort of a massive emotional connection and massive empathy to the Leonardo DiCaprio character. The two things undercut each other. The film can't really land its comedy because of the attempts of harshness and gravitas, and then the movie can't land the harshness and gravitas because of the comedy. In that the whole thing is just such an emotional mess, such a tonal mess. And the film, it's trying to sit on two chairs simultaneously. Either it needs to be a glib crime comedy where things don't really matter, but then, like, why make it a remake of Infernal Affairs if that's what you do? And why have it a Scorsese movie? Well, obviously the market realities say that it's more profitable to make a Martin Scorsese movie than to have some sort of a quirky Shane Black style crime comedy. Again, I'm fine with all the kind of it don't add inches to your you know what type jokes that the screenplay has, but I would rather the film was all that. Like, I would rather that it was a Jack Nicholson kind of, like, if Jack Nicholson was the lead, and if they couldn't get Matt Damon and Leonardo DiCaprio, if they couldn't get Martin Scorsese, like, if Jack Nicholson was the lead of the movie, and there were some slightly more obscure character actors around them, that it would be that kind of a snarky crime comedy. I would be perfectly fine with it. I would praise the movie more than I do now, because it doesn't have this kind of tone-deaf, half-baked attempt at recreating the kind of Infernal Affairs tonality to it. Like, the movie tries to do too much, it's all over the place, and it just fails these kind of simple things that it does. Like, I mean, it should have been one of the great things to see as a film buff. Jack Nicholson, maybe the greatest actor in his generation, like I would tentatively say, to see Jack Nicholson finally do a Martin Scorsese movie, but he's kind of like an afterthought in the movie, and he's in comedy mode. You know, like, again, just pick a lane. Either do the crime comedy or do the kind of serious drama. And, you know, again, if this movie is Pizza Scorsese's return to mainstream, it's just, when it tries to have it both ways, it tries to have the kind of quality as being a serious drama, being a Scorsese art film, but also being a mainstream crime thriller comedy. At the same time, like, the two things undercut each other, and the film is just sort of nothing when it tries to be everything. You know, I understand why people love the movie. I do. There's a lot to love in it, but the movie's identity is just completely messed up. And again, the way that the Andy Lau character is actually the protagonist in Infernal Affairs, like the Matt Damon character is meant to be the protagonist here, but just like the Matt Damon characters, like, it tries to be subtle, but it's so blunt with its subtlety that it's almost like the whole Matt Damon stuff is kind of an afterthought. Like, he's just standing there, he's not doing anything for the movie, and they just sort of want to subtly signal it to the back row that, oh, he has all of this kind of secret life stuff to his character and whatever, but nobody cares about it, because the movie doesn't give you any reason to care about the Matt Damon character. The movie doesn't give you any reason to care about anything in there, really. It's like some sort of a stand-up comedy with a revolving cast of, you know, you have Jack Nicholson do his one-liners, you have Alec Baldwin do his one-liners, Mark Wahlberg, you know, Matt Damon occasionally, you know, talking about how psychoanalysis doesn't work on the Irish and whatever. Like, you know, that stuff is fine, but, like, for the love of God, don't call this some sort of a return to the Goodfellas territory, because that's the last thing this is. The reason why Goodfellas is so great, maybe the greatest American movie of the 1990s, is because it knows exactly what its identity is. It's constant to its purpose. It doesn't put a foot wrong. It's just, Goodfellas is so true to itself. The Departed isn't true to anything. Like, you know, I'm fine people loving the movie, but stop calling it a return to greatness in Scorsese's career, because it's not even the best of the Leonardo DiCaprio era in Scorsese. Like, it's not the best of anything. That's where I'm coming from. I hate to be negative, but again, like, if people give this kind of signal that this kind of sort of, you know, half great, half not great movies, like, if people give the signal that this is what we want from Scorsese, it's not what I want from Scorsese. Like, I honestly would prefer this if it was directed by Shane Black or something. Like, and, you know, just throughout all the attempts at depth and whatever. Like, I would vastly prefer it. And, you know, again, I just want to say this is not what I want from Scorsese, but I understand why some people think that the great outweigh the not great, but I can't go along with it. So those were my thoughts about why I think that The Departed is not among top tier Scorsese movies and why I think that late period post-casino stuff is not really among top tier Scorsese movies. That's just my opinion. Others can disagree, but this is where I'm coming from. Anyway, I think that was all for this video. Thank you for watching. Bye bye for now.